right?
Yep, I'm just fixing a typo.
Okay, Mayor, you could start.
Welcome everyone to the regular Board of Trustees meeting for Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021. Is there a motion to open the meeting? Trustee DeRozzi, second. Trustee Nell, all in favor? The meeting is officially open, and can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Of course, we are meeting virtually. I usually give instructions on how to participate in the meeting, although the instructions are always attached to the agenda. Just I want to go over this again, that during the pandemic, our statutory board meetings are meeting remotely. You are able to participate via Zoom, by internet, or by telephone. Videos can also be viewed after each meeting on YouTube and will be posted on the village website. If you have a comment, question, or concern which you would like to make, please email the village clerk by 3 p.m. on the Monday before the meeting. Be sure to include the meeting date and agenda item you'd like to address. Send the comments to the village clerk at ldraper@dobbsferry.com. For public hearings, we will accept email comments in advance of the hearings. Please email the village clerk at ldraper.com, ldraper@dobbsferry.com at 3 o'clock on the Monday before the meeting. Participating in the meeting via Zoom, you can log on via Zoom and you can participate by raising your hand to raise a question or a concern. By telephone, you can call the number indicated in the Zoom invitation for the particular meeting. You'll be automatically muted when you call. If dialing in by phone, you may raise your hand by dialing 9. You may unmute yourself by dialing *6. Okay, so we can go to our agenda. I would like to note that we're going to add action item number 7, which authorizes the mayor to sign an intermunicipal agreement with the county regarding funds granted to us regarding Gould Park Playground. Okay, I think
Mayor,
the first.
I
Yes.
just want to let you know George Latimer is here.
Put him on.
Okay. George, can you hear us?
There you are.
Good evening, everybody. How are you?
Good evening and welcome to Dobbs Ferry virtually.
Be with you from the comfort of my office. I'm joined by Ellen Hendricks, who's our Assistant Director of Intergovernmental Issues. And I appreciate the opportunity to come. I know you've got a long agenda. Mr. Mayor, what I was planning to do is give everybody a quick update on where we are with the coronavirus, both the issues of testing as well as infection rates. Take any questions, and then the invisible hook will take me out of here.
Floor is yours.
Thank you very much. We have...
You're muted, George. George, you're muted.
I got you. Thank you. Every Monday, we have a municipal call at 3:30 where we invite the mayors and the administrators for each of the communities to come on board and try to exchange certain information. And I want to make sure I have a chance to visit the different village boards, town boards, and city councils to make sure that we have some information that would go to a wider audience. Ellen Hendricks, whom you know is a neighbor from Hastings, is our Assistant Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, Steve Bass, who's a neighbor from Hartsdale. We try to keep this on the Greenberg side of the town. It's the Director of Intergovernmental Relations. And so they help me in some of these interactions. The COVID numbers as of today, countywide, we're almost one full year into the COVID outbreak, show that we have right now active 6,264 cases countywide of COVID. That I got muted. Okay. I'm sure this is what all my friends want to do, just mute me every so often when I go on too much. But we've had year-to-date 105,000 cases plus, and 98,000 of those cases are 2 weeks or longer in duration. So those people have worked through their illness, and now there's 6,200 active cases. Just to give you a frame of reference, a week ago, we had 6,800 cases. 2 weeks ago, we had 8,200 cases. 3 weeks ago, 10,000 cases. 4 weeks ago, 11,300. So we're seeing now in the last 4 or 5 weeks a steady diminution in the number of active cases. That's obviously good news. What it basically means is less people are testing positive today than tested positive 2 weeks ago. And that may be a downward slope primarily because we spiked up given Christmas and New Year holidays when people gathered in their own private settings. As you well know, whether it's in Dobbs Ferry or any place else across the country, almost every public event has been canceled or we go virtually, as you are doing, as the Dobbs Ferry Rivertown's Chamber of Commerce goes virtually, and the Rotary and Lions Clubs go virtually. There aren't any parades and so forth. So it's been in the interpersonal actions that we've seen the expansion of the virus. But the fact that we're going downward and that number is a good number. We also have the number that 383 people countywide are hospitalized for COVID. That number is down from a week before 412. The week before that was 498. The week before that in the 500s. So when active cases are down and hospitalizations are down, that shows that not only the breadth of the disease is slackening, but the depth of the problem is slackening. People get very sick, go to hospitals. If they stay out of the hospitals, then obviously they recover more quickly. We have had 2,070 fatalities over the course of this year. That's a lot of people, friends, people we know. Every one of these people was loved by somebody, somebody's spouse, somebody's father, somebody's neighbor or coworker. The only bit of encouraging news is the reduction in the amount of fatalities. Over the last week, we lost 39 people. In the prior week, we lost 47 people. In the week prior to that, we lost 57 people. So the numbers are coming down a bit. There was a period of time in the summertime where we had no fatalities in some consecutive weeks. And obviously that's what we hope to get back to. So what we have is the infection is slowing down, but at the same time, we're still in a foot race against the vaccination side. And the more people that get vaccinated, the less likely they are to get COVID, as medical science tells us. And right now we're still dealing with a major problem with availability of the vaccine, that we don't have enough doses of vaccine produced from the national level to the state down to us. We have so far at the county center, which is the major place for vaccinations in the county, they can vaccinate well over 1,000 people a day there, and they go 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. 7 days a week. And they've done 1,200, 1,400, a little higher than that on certain days. And so that has been the main place we've vaccinated people. We're just below 70,000 vaccinations at that facility for the 4 or 5 weeks that it's been open. Now, I'm including first and second shot vaccinations. So it doesn't necessarily mean 70,000 people, probably more like 50,000 people, with 20,000 of them having gotten their second shot. The county has 2 clinic locations, one in downtown White Plains and one at the community college on the Greenberg Mount Pleasant border. And we've hit about 10,000 vaccinations. And then elsewhere in the county, in the aggregate, about 40,000 more vaccinations. That counts hospital-based vaccinations, the local pharmacies, and these pop-up centers that the state has structured. We understand that the state, and particularly the governor, not the state legislators, have created the program. It's all his rules that have started, what gets shut down, what got opened up in the spring, what businesses, his directive on how testing was going to be held, and also what data is collected and returned to us, and now finally on the setup of the vaccinations. And the system that's been set up frustrates people, but it's frankly because of a lack of total amount of vaccines. The analogy I often say is you've got a plate with 10 cookies on it, and you have 35 people that are eligible to have a cookie, but there's only 10 cookies on the plate. Now you open up the door to another 35 people. You open the door and you say, okay, restaurant workers are now eligible. People with comorbidities are eligible. Now you have 70 people in the room, but you still only have 10 cookies on the plate. So it's the number of cookies or the number of vaccines that really drives the frustration that people feel that they can't get vaccine. And at this point, the way the state has structured the system, the only people that are eligible to get the vaccine are people 65 years of age and older, people who have a defined underlying health issue, and things that generally relate to COVID vulnerability. So those comorbidities would be diabetes, hypertension, COPD. If you're getting treatment for cancer, weakened immune system, same for AIDS, diseases like that. It doesn't necessarily have chronic bad back or bad joint muscles and so forth. Those don't lend themselves the same kind of comorbidity. So at any age, you can receive the vaccine now in the state of New York if you have one of those, can certify that you have one of those comorbidities. And then there's been an occupational identification, again, structured by the state, first responders, police, fire, EMS, education, so teachers and other people in this educational situation. We have funeral directors, bus drivers, we have now restaurant workers, taxi and limousine drivers, people who work at developmentally disabled centers, a host of occupational-based eligibility for people to get vaccines. You're still dealing with the vast majority of people in Westchester and Dobbs Ferry and everywhere else that are not yet eligible to get the vaccine. And so what the expectation is that as the federal government works with the various pharmaceutical companies, they increase production, we get more vaccines that come online, such as Johnson & Johnson's product, AstraZeneca, and then the production level of the other ones, that there will be enough product for everybody who wants a vaccine to get it. When that happens is estimated to be over the next couple of months. By April, May, we'll start to see enough vaccine product out there to satisfy the demand. And we've all waited 11 months, and now we've got this many more period of time to go. But we do have 120,000 people in Westchester vaccinated, and that number is going to rise, and hopefully that's a good sign. The local connection, and I know that in Dobbs Ferry you've already identified these things, worked on these things. We want to be able to be prepared when we get the green light from the state to vaccinate people that are homebound. There may be seniors, there could be anybody else. It's not a matter of preferentiality. You'd rather get it at home. These are people who can't leave the house and also need to be vaccinated. And we're going to rely on every village and town and city to try to identify, to the best of your ability, through the police department and the senior programs and so forth, those individuals that would have to be reached by a mobile vaccination unit once we get the green light. Now, they may do it through the county health department, they may do it through visiting nurses, whatever the state does, they'll do. But that is a localized list that if you work on and have available at Village Hall, I know you're doing it already, that would be helpful. We've tried to get all of your local police, fire, EMS people vaccinated. We have a list of some numbers. You can always talk to the administrator tomorrow to go over to make sure that everybody who wants the vaccine has it, so that your core emergency service people are vaccinated and now able to go out, interact with the public, and be able to do that in a healthy fashion. And then the final point, depending on how the state operates with this, if they intend to do other pop-up or temporary vaccination centers, that you would identify what you think would be the best possible location or locations in Dobbs Ferry for that purpose. And it would be your recommendation and so forth. We know that the state wants to open up more mega vaccination centers like the county center, and they will be opening up one for registration tomorrow in Yonkers at the Armory down on Quincy Place, which is on the west side, just north of downtown Yonkers. We're going to need more of those kinds of facilities. We certainly won't have one of those in every community. How close or near other ones may be to Dobbs residents is yet to be determined. But if they do decide to go with smaller, localized pop-up centers, as well as working through the local pharmacies, then that will be an area where your input is going to be important. I've tried to emphasize to our state officials, let us in the county give you advice, and let the villages and the towns give you advice about what makes sense. Don't try to make the decisions over the top, because we each know better the communities that we're in and so forth. But the bottom line is that if we get additional product over the next few weeks, we're going to vaccinate more people as we can. Right now, we're working very heavily on trying to get teachers vaccinated in order to open schools. And if you don't vaccinate all the teachers, it's going to be very hard to open the school system. So I wanted to give you that sort of 100-mile-an-hour update. Ellen serves as your point of contact for any of the questions you have in the future. But if it's convenient, Mr. Mayor, I'll take any questions right now.
Sure. I just want to thank you for appearing today, and we have been in contact with Ellen about a possible pop-up as our new community center. So, I mean, that's, may be available, and we'll keep in touch with Ellen about that. Any other questions for the county executive? No?
Hope I didn't put everybody to
No.
sleep. Vince.
Well, I just have comments, not necessarily, that's not a question, it's a comment. I did get a vaccine at the Westchester Center, and I just want to say how terrific the staff was there. There were a lot of people, they were very helpful. It went very smoothly, and every person I came in contact with was friendly and helpful. And this was near the end of the day, so I just want to, I don't know who's responsible for staffing that, but I just wanted to give them a shout out.
Donna, we'll convey that. It's a combination of the state, Westchester Medical Center, and the county. And we'll convey that to the people on the ground that actually do the logistics so they know that it went well. And we appreciate the good feedback.
Hey, George, how are you?
Good to see you, Maura.
My question is, do you have any idea if we actually will, in fact, get the teachers vaccinated with enough time to be able to open the schools like in the next month or so? It just seems to me that by adding more of the, I guess, the eligibility, it puts a delay on getting all of these teachers vaccinated in order for us to open the school.
Well, Maura, we're trying our best. There are more teachers in the county in general than there are police, fire, and EMS added together. There's a huge number of teachers. You can imagine how large a school district is versus the size of a village or a town. The other problem that we have, and it's the differing sizes of school districts, that if we start the Yonkers district, it could take a week plus just to do Yonkers alone. And in that same period of time, we could probably do 3 or 4 smaller districts. And then there's been a great concern about the equity of how the vaccines are being disseminated so that people of color are getting equal opportunity proportionate to get it too. Because sometimes, the current system, you go online. Well, if you have a computer, if you have computer skills, you're in a better position to get that information than if you don't have it, or if you're a senior citizen, or again, a person that doesn't have the resources to have those kind of equipment. So I think we're trying the best we can. We were hurt last week by the fact that you had the cold weather out in the Midwest and Texas, as you saw on TV. It delayed us getting our doses coming in from Moderna, which is based in Tennessee. And so we went a couple of days where we couldn't administer shots. And so we fell backwards. We had to cancel, and now we've had to reschedule people. That does create some operational problems. What Donna described has been the norm, that it moves pretty well. But when we're trying to catch up for people that we missed during a snowstorm, then we have added people, and that often creates some lines. But we're trying our best to get as many of the teachers through. We ask for, 4,000 doses a week to do this. We get about 2,500. And so we make do with what we can make. But the decision on opening a school district belongs to the local school superintendent and the school board in consultation with their parents and their teachers. The county's role is twofold. Try to get as many people vaccinated, not just teachers, anybody in the school system. So cafeteria workers, maintenance people, anybody who would have contact with students. To try to get as many people vaccinated, that's job one. And then job two is our health department to work with the individuals in the schools to try to help them position and sanitize and make it as good as possible. And that's not easy to do. Some of the school districts have older buildings and limited number of classrooms. So it's from district to district, it's a very tricky project. But the county doesn't have authority over the schools, but we are tasked with being a partner in helping them open. Now, the big question between the school districts and the teachers, that discussion, we're not in the middle of that. I can understand what the battle would be. Many times the teachers union will say, we're not going back until everybody's vaccinated. So that's their battle. But we know that we then at least have to try to vaccinate everybody. And that's what we're trying to do.
Makes sense. Thank you, George.
Thank you, Mark. I don't want to take up unnecessary time, Vince. You've been very gracious to let us stop in and visit, and we're at your discretion in the future if you need us, individually or collectively at any time. I just did want to give you the update, and if there are other questions in the future, by means, reach out to us. We'll be happy to help you with it.
Thanks again for everything that you do, and thanks for taking the time to visit with us. And we'll be seeing you, I'm sure.
Pleasure. Hopefully in the summertime by that pool that you opened, and we could all
That's right.
have to be socially distanced again.
Okay. Thanks again. Take
Okay.
care.
On behalf
Thank
of
you,
Ellen and
Alan.
myself, thank you.
Okay, so let's move to our presentation. I think the first presentation is by the Affordable Housing Task Force. Jen, who's here to speak on that?
There's a few people here. I'm gonna promote them right now. Hold on. Oh, sorry.
Can you hear me?
We hear you, Tracy, and welcome.
Hi. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see.
So who's here presenting with you, Tracy?
I am going to start out. Sorry, let me just set this up. It's primarily going to be me, but if we
Okay.
have any questions at the end that I can't answer, we also have Rob Lane available as well, and also Trustee Cassell and DeRosie are also on our task force. But I'll be taking you through the presentation.
Okay,
You
great.
should introduce yourself, Tracy,
Okay.
for the purposes of Zoom.
Okay. Hi, I'm Tracy Barron. Thank you so much for inviting the Dobbs Ferry Affordable Housing Task Force to speak to you tonight. You can see the
And
presentation.
Tracy, you're the chair of the committee, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
You can see the presentation, right?
Yes.
So this is what I'm going to try to cover tonight. I want to just introduce us, who we are, and I've just listed our members there. I'm not going to read everything on the slides, but there we are, along with our sort of other affiliations. We're going to go over why our task force was established, and also what we're hoping to do as we move forward. And obviously, feel free to shout out and interrupt me if you have questions. Okay, so we thought we would just start with a definition so we're all on the same page. What do we mean when we say is housing affordable? Policymakers use a rule of thumb where they say if housing is taking up no more than 30% of a family's income, then that housing is considered affordable. Seems reasonable, right? So what's the problem? Well, here is just a smattering of some of the headlines you may have seen over the last few years. In case you've somehow not seen these headlines, we are in the midst of a real housing affordability crisis in our whole country, including the New York region and including Westchester. And unfortunately, Dobbs Ferry is just not immune from this problem. I could spend a lot of time talking about what caused this. There's some debate about that, but for the interest of time, I'll skip past that. There are probably many forces at work, but in a nutshell, housing prices are going up faster than wages are able to keep pace, and so that causes this housing affordability crisis. Real solutions to our nationwide problem are really probably going to have to come, at least in part, from the federal and state government. But that doesn't mean there aren't things that localities like Dobbs Ferry can do, and so that's what we're going to focus on, and that's what we think our task force can help us zero in on. So why should we in Dobbs Ferry care about this, right? We're already here. Apparently, supposedly we already live here. We've already got our housing. Why should we care? Well, there are two reasons, and they can kind of be put into two little buckets. The first is sort of the big picture. What kind of village do we want to live in? What do we want it to feel like? What are our values? Do we want a village that is balanced, that is well functioning, that has diversity, that thinks about equity, that addresses segregation? Do we want to live somewhere where we have room for different types of folks, room for seniors, young families, things like that? But the other thing we need to think about is high housing costs impact us, even those of us who already live here. High housing costs can have a negative impact on us, on our residents, on our local employers, and on our local businesses. And here is just a couple of the things that the research tells us that high housing costs can lead to. One is actually more traffic. Think about it, if employees who work in our local businesses, work in our schools and our hospital, can't afford to live here or anywhere nearby, that causes more people to drive. So that's more traffic. Everyone is driving farther to get where they need to go. The other thing to think about is that our local employers need workers at all different wage levels. Again, think about our hospitals, think about our restaurants. The other thing to remember is people who are cost burdened from their housing have less money to spend on everything else. So remember that 30%. If you're spending way more than 30% on your housing, you definitely have less money left over to spend in our local businesses. And so that affects our economy. So because of all this, Westchester County set out to do what's called the Westchester County Housing Needs Assessment. The last one they did came out in November of 2019. And I won't spend a lot of time on this, but just to let you know this is there. I'd highly recommend you take a look at this. It's long and there's a lot of data. But the focus of this was so that places like us would have the data we needed to understand this issue. And I'd also recommend you take a look at the end. There are little housing snapshots of each city, each town, and each village. So you can look at the little Dobbs Ferry snapshot that has all sorts of data. Most of the numbers I'm going to be sharing with you tonight come from this document. And just to remember, this came out before the pandemic. So probably some of the trends that are in here have gotten worse since then. So these were the top line findings of that Westchester County Housing Needs Assessment. The total number of housing units that are needed was calculated to be over 11,000. The other top line finding is that 41.4% of households in Westchester County are paying more than that 30% of their income toward housing. And as our county executive, who we just heard from, at the news conference that announced this report back in 2009, he said, quote, "This is a crisis in every corner of our county." So what's happening here in Dobbs Ferry? This is just some statistics. Here we have, again, as of the end of 2019, 32.7% of households in Dobbs Ferry are paying more than that 30% toward housing. In addition, 14.5% are actually paying more than 50%, and that's what we consider severely cost-burdened housing. 30 units of housing in Dobbs Ferry are considered substandard, and 85 housing units in Dobbs Ferry are considered severely overcrowded. And at the bottom, I have just so you can see some of the numbers from our surrounding villages to see how everyone is doing. This is just a few more statistics that I thought folks would be interested in seeing. The one thing that jumps out to me is in the very bottom on the right-hand side. If you look at how median monthly rent has changed since 2000, it has gone up by 43.5%, which is very high. And again, this was as of 2017. So what do we do about this? There are basically two ways to try to think about the way that policymakers talk about how to address this crisis. The first is what we call capital AH, affordable housing. And the second is increasing a supply of the supply of housing that's just regular lowercase AH, affordable housing. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So let's start with the capital AH. This refers to housing that is legally designated with rules and standards enforced by a government entity for price and for who qualifies. The prices are set so that they're affordable to folks at either 60% or 80% of area median income for Westchester County. Generally, it's 60% is the highest for renters, but it can go up to 80% for purchase units. This is just a summary of the rules for that. Again, this is the summary of capital AH affordable housing. And these units are, the way they are given out is that folks apply through a HUD approved nonprofit agency and they get placed via a lottery. These units generally come about as a result of a local government requiring that a certain percentage of affordable housing units will be set aside in new developments. And you'll hear more about that. So I mentioned area median income for Westchester County. This just tells you what that is for the most recent year for 2020. You see that number in red. That is the area median income for Westchester County. And HUD does the calculations where it goes up and down starting from that number. So you can see if you look down at the 60% row for a unit that is designed to serve 4 people, the top income for a family to qualify for that would be $75,500. Okay. So now we get into the second part, which is lowercase AH affordable housing. This is housing that's not necessarily designated or set aside by a government, but that's just designed to be affordable to a wider range of people. When you think about it, all housing is affordable to someone. And so housing experts try to think about this housing spectrum, which I've got a little picture of. It's also what some people call naturally occurring affordable housing, which is just housing that's affordable to a wide range of people. So the question is, what can we do in Dobbs Ferry to make it more likely that these naturally affordable types of housing will be built here and that the ones we already have will be preserved? So that's where the Dobbs Ferry Affordable Housing Task Force comes in. In light of all of this data, Trustee Donna Cassell proposed that we establish a task force to learn more about this issue and to explore possible strategies to address it here in Dobbs Ferry. This is our mission statement. I'll give you a second if you want to read it. It's pretty straightforward, but we feel it's very important on the bottom to make sure we focus on educating both ourselves and the community about what the affordable housing crisis is. We think it's very important that we engage the community to find out what people think are the values we should keep in mind, what are their priorities, what are their concerns as we go about looking at this issue. And we also want to make sure we celebrate and build upon the diversity of the Dobbs Ferry community. We're definitely at the very beginning of our process. This is what we have been doing. We've been educating ourselves. We've been trying to attend conferences, reading everything we can get our hands on, going to trainings. We've drafted our mission statement. We've been collecting model ordinances. The County of Westchester has plenty of model ordinances that we can start with. We've been looking at what our neighbors are doing in this area. And we've also been exploring how we can facilitate a community forum, potentially using the Pace University Land Use Law Center to help facilitate that process. We also, in 2019, as you'll recall, the village updated its affordable housing code, and our task force helped with that process a little bit as well. And we are now, Dobbs Ferry's code is now in line with the Westchester County model. And I'll get into a little more detail about that in a minute. So just some background about what we already have in Dobbs Ferry, what we've already sort of said. This is just some language from the vision plan. It calls for, as you can see, providing affordable housing and a variety of housing types to meet the needs of a wide range of people. And if you look at the photos, you can see this is just a sampling of some of the different housing types we have in Dobbs Ferry. As you can see, we're fortunate that we do have a pretty good variety of housing types here. And so the question becomes, how do we preserve that and how can we possibly expand on that? So this is the Affordable Housing Code that I mentioned. Again, now we're back to talking about capital A, capital H. This was updated in 2019. And as I said, this is an important benefit, really, that every new development provides. So every new development of 5 or more units, at least 1 unit of capital AH affordable housing must be set aside. And you can see the numbers. It's 10 to 15%. And at least 1 for every development of 5 or more units. And again, folks are placed in these units through that not-for-profit HUD-approved agency through a lottery. Okay. So as I mentioned, we've also been looking at what our neighbors are doing to get some ideas. Here are a couple of the things I've listed out. The one thing I want to draw your attention to is something called accessory dwelling units, or ADUs. These are secondary small housing units that are either added to or sort of carved out of an existing single family home. Some people call these in-law units or granny flats. This is something that, as you start to read the literature about affordable housing, it comes up again and again and again. It's pretty much universally recommended as a quick and kind of easy way to increase the supply of affordable housing in a community like Dobbs Ferry. So that's something that we do feel ready to recommend. Westchester County does have a model ordinance that we can start with, and most of our surrounding villages are already doing this. And just the photos show two examples of current accessory dwelling units in nearby towns. So this is what we see as our next step. As I said, we think it's very important to focus on education and outreach. We'd like to do, as a first step, what we're calling a stakeholders forum, where we gather together other organizations and groups that are doing work that is related. So, for example, the Diversity and Human Rights Committee, the Sustainability Task Force, the Traffic Committee, the school district, people like that. And then after that, we'd like to try to facilitate a much broader community forum where we can collect input from the whole community. We'd like to expand our task force membership. We'd like to focus on these quote unquote easy actions that we think we can look at right away, such as the Affordable Accessory Dwelling Unit Ordinance. And long term, we'd like to adopt a affordable housing action plan. So we're in the process of getting a little page up on the village website. And these are the things that you'll be able to find there. A link to the Westchester County Housing Needs Assessment. We'll have links to all sorts of reports and research and articles about this topic. And also some organizations that folks can reach out to if they need help with their own housing needs. Westchester County actually has a great assortment of links and information on there. And these are the two nonprofits that, in fact, Westchester Residential Opportunities is the nonprofit that folks apply for those affordable housing units through. And that's the end of our prepared presentation. I'm happy to take questions if anyone has any.
Well, thank you, Tracy. I had taken a few years ago a class at the Pace Land Use Law Center for affordable housing, and we did take a bus tour around Westchester County, and we did see a number of accessory dwelling units, and I think that is a good first step. So, it seems like we can do that, and so we should look forward to doing. So, at the very least, we should start with that. So, but thank you for the presentation, and I think certainly we should move forward with it, and I'm sure Donna will make sure that we move forward with it, right, Donna?
Yeah, so I want to thank Tracy and the rest of the committee. It's small, but it's a very mighty committee. They do a lot of work, and I do want to point out, as Tracy mentioned, we did last year, in 19, pass the model, the Westchester model affordable housing policy, which, just as you know, has now allowed us to apply for certain grants as well. And we'll be talking about that a little later tonight. So in addition to doing something, it can be paying for itself. So again, I want to acknowledge the committee's work and getting that passed and getting that structured. So thank you.
I'd like to propose that we look at some language immediately for the accessory dwelling unit issue. I think that is not only is it a great solution to add the number of units, it's also an easy one, and it's a way that we can take an existing practice that is ubiquitous and bring it into compliance with code, so that those units that are existing and being rented in that way can be safe and legal for those people. And so Tracy, if you have a model code from a nearby community that you'd like to send to us and to the village attorney, and we can, modify it slightly, but I imagine that it's fairly straightforward. It's used everywhere. There isn't a whole lot of reason that we should rethink it. And I think that's something we'd all be in favor of approving and working with the building department to implement right now.
Yeah, as I mentioned, Westchester County has a model ordinance, and we can take a look at what our surrounding villages have done to see if they've made any modifications. But the Westchester model ordinance, I think, is the place to start. And Rob Lane is on here as well, another member of our committee. Do you have anything to add about that, Rob? But that's certainly a great next step for our committee to get on top of.
No, I mean, I agree with Michael entirely. We have already collected, we have both the model, I mean, to be honest, the model ordinance from the County of Westchester is necessarily quite broad because they knew that every community was different and was gonna have to fold this into their code in a different way. Every municipality defines things differently and so on. So as useful as it is, what we found even better is both Hastings and Irvington have ordinances that I'll share with everyone. We've been sharing it with Ed to make sure that things were defined in a way that made sense with our code. And I'll just say that all of the kinds of anxieties that have been expressed at one time or another about this, oh, it's going to change the character of our neighborhoods and so on. None of that has happened in the places that have adopted this. Hastings, in order at the time, since they were one of the first ones out of the gate, in order to sort of calm everybody down, they have a rule, which we might consider also, that there would be no more than 50 of these. They're permitted individually. The permits have to be renewed. I've forgotten however many years, every so many years. They put an absolute cap on the number of those that could ever exist in the village at any one time is at 50. They've never hit it. I think that they have something like 30 like that. So there are a bunch of little breaks. You know, if people are anxious about it, there are this business about having to have them renewed, about having an absolute cap on the number and so on. I think you'll see when you look at the Hastings Code that it's very reasonable about this thing. The other thing that I would just say as a cautionary kind of note is accessory dwelling units are not in and of themselves affordable housing. What they do is they increase the supply overall, and that helps depress prices. They enable, people's kids to stick around or people's parents to stick around. It has a lot of those kinds of benefits, but it's not in and of itself necessarily affordable housing. Some of the affordable housing units I've seen are very nice, and nobody who was going to build a really nice affordable housing unit like that was necessarily going to do capital A, capital H affordable housing. But you're absolutely right. This is low-hanging fruit. There's, so many of our neighbors have done this without any negative consequences around densification or traffic or anything else, that it really would be a great, actually modest first step, but a great first step.
Yeah, I think it would be a great first step.
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead, Kristen.
Are there any incentive programs for rehabilitating buildings in a way that keeps them affordable while making upgrades to buildings? Have you heard of anything like that? Because I know that I feel like there's just so many buildings that people would rather just tear it down and build something new, and ideally there would be some incentive to just save it and upgrade it HGTV style and make it better so that it's still affordable but not falling apart anymore.
That's a really great point. I don't know the answer to it, but it's a great point, and it's worth, I mean, my sense, I haven't seen anything like that. So if I had to guess, I'd say, I don't know. I really just should stick with, I don't really know. And I think it's definitely worth researching. I think it may be that those communities that have created affordable housing action plans, they might create their own ways of locally incentivizing it. I don't know if there was like a county or a state program for doing it, but there may be. I mean, and it's a really great question. And that's one of the things our little group will research for sure.
We actually had a little bit of a discussion over this, considering that many of the buildings that we have in the village could use some help. And we even discussed about landlords receiving additional support from a grant to be able to update their building with the condition of having more affordable housing. But that's part of the many, many discussions that this committee have had, which Robert, Rob, and Tracy don't, of course. We do meet very often, and there is, a lot of discussion. So thank you so much, guys, for everything that you guys dig for, because we do review a lot of information on a regular basis.
I mean, I think the point is that the answer, it really is not to create capital A, capital H housing, although we can do that. We have our set aside thing and so on, that's fine. But in the end, what we really want to do is try to make it possible for this like very crazy, wonderful, and diverse fabric of buildings that we already have in the village to continue. That's the real way to keep Dobbs Ferry affordable. And so I agree with Christy that we should be thinking about what kinds of things can we offer building owners to kind of fix up their buildings without necessarily taking them off the market in terms of their affordability.
This is another end of the spectrum, but have you discussed zoning incentives for new buildings? Or, there's a long history of that and it's fraught with a lot of problems, but now that we know what those problems have been in the past, substandard affordable units or putting them off site, that sort of thing, the language can be crafted to keep those practices at bay. Is that something you're considering?
Yes, and it's something that we'll make recommendations about for sure. And this is, especially where, Pace University Land Use Law Center, this is like their thing, is kind of land use law and how to turn it towards these purposes. But there are tools that can kind of incentivize these things.
Yeah, and that's exactly the kinds of things that we want to learn more about and see what we can propose.
Just for everyone, I don't know if everyone's familiar with this, it essentially allows someone to build more square footage or a higher building if they are committing more of the percentage of their building to affordable housing. So it's practice used in a lot of, mostly in cities, large and small, but we debate a lot about the height and size of our new buildings, and so obviously that one could be a delicate option, but I think it's a great one. I mean, there's, because those, as we saw at 41 Main Street, getting more affordable units into a nice new building is really a benefit to everyone.
Right.
Yeah, we do sort of have that a bit in our code with the fourth story in the downtown, which adding an extra affordable housing unit is one of the factors that we take into consideration if somebody does want to increase the height of their building. So we kind of have that.
I also think that there's some village-owned property on, I think, Cedar or maybe Maine, and it would be great to do a public-private partnership to make those completely affordable buildings.
I was going to say that, yeah, I mean, I was going to say if the low-hanging fruit is just adopting the the accessory dwelling unit, the high fruit, which we have to decide if we have the capacity to, is where villages become their own local development corporations. Hastings has both all the things that we have in the zoning, but they also have a little development entity that actually they've used a couple of times to develop their own affordable housing. And that's
we have that too, right?
Huh?
We have an LDC.
We do. We do. And we talked about that at our last meeting, and we were going to look at that and see, well, could we, some of these properties, exactly, Nicole, like that one keeps coming up, some of the same down, like why couldn't the village of Dobbs Ferry develop that? Why couldn't we develop that ourselves? And it's a very exciting idea. It's a big, but it is a big lift because it takes money to.
No, that's why I said public and private partnership.
Yes.
We find a developer to co-sponsor.
It's a great idea. It would be exciting to do. And you know, the village owns other land in other places. It might be, you know, win-win for this. So.
And there are a lot of developers out there who will do that. I mean, I remember meeting with them when we met with the land use center. So it is an interesting concept. So
Yeah.
thank you again for presenting. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
We look forward to seeing you guys in the future. And we'll at least get started. So let's move forward on that. Okay. Thanks again.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is a presentation on the upgrades to the audio video system for Village Hall. So who's here to speak on that?
I'll do a quick intro. Jen will promote, but this was in reference to the board's request for us to look into this. The pandemic has been awful for so many reasons, but there have been a few insights as well. And one was when you incorporate video conferencing into your public meetings, we can suddenly see the presentations. We can have people engage with our public meetings from home if they can't get childcare, if they can't leave their office in time. And so the board had requested that we look into whether we could, when we go back to live meetings, whether we could upgrade our audiovisual system to allow for sort of hybrid interaction where our meeting is live, but we offer the ability to engage digitally. So that's what we've been looking into, our audiovisual team, Jen, Liz, and myself. So I think we found a good solution. And so Jen, do you have anything else to say?
Yes, very quickly. I just want to say we're really excited and we're happy that the board let us present, and we're happy to have GIS here. And I'm sure you all know that our AV system is lacking, to say the least. The biggest issue was definitely the audio. People at home couldn't hear at all, and people in the boardroom could barely hear, and that was a struggle, definitely. And the other issue was people not being able to see the plans if they were put on the screen. So we're really excited about this system that hopefully you guys will approve eventually. And you'll be able to see everything. You'll be able to hear everything. And like Elisa said about like a hybrid, way of doing meetings post-COVID. If you're not able to come to a meeting, anybody and everybody will still be able to join the meeting, and hopefully we can increase public participation. And that's it. And I think I promoted everyone from GIS.
Got us all.
Okay, good.
And I'll just say one more thing, which is the funds for this project are not, they come from a franchise agreement with our cable provider. So they're not coming out of taxpayer dollars.
Even better. Well, welcome everybody. Please introduce yourselves, and looking forward to your presentation.
You bet. Well, first and foremost, we want to thank you for having us. My name's Cale Knoyer with Global Interactive Solutions, and I have the other team members that have worked with myself and your staff, Jen, Liz, Elisa, and also Jeff on this project. So we've got Werner Richter on the call. We have Ludwig Molnar, who actually did the on-site visit and kind of inventory of the current solution. And then Phil Cartier, who is our engineer on this particular project. And Phil will actually go over some of the AV plans that he has drawn up after we go over the presentation. So I'll go ahead and present. First and foremost, what we're going to cover here in this presentation is we're going to highlight a professionally engineered solution that addresses your current pain points with your solution that is in place right now, while providing Dobbs Ferry the functionality desired to carry out, as Jen quite eloquently described, the virtual and hybrid meetings going forward in the post-COVID timeframe. So We were asked not to get too technical with a lot of jargon and descriptions of equipment, so on and so forth. But what I do want to let you know is that there's going to be a kind of two parts to this. One is going to be a completely built out new AV rack to be located in your current AV closet or room that is adjacent to the commissioner's chambers there. And then you're going to have the equipment that actually resides in the meeting space. So your repurposed microphones, new speakers in the ceilings, touch screens, a 10-inch touch screen for operating all the features of the Zoom room, both in a meeting and out of a meeting, as well as all the appropriate cabling, so on and so forth. So in that rack will be the kind of the horsepower that runs everything, computer, digital audio mixer, so on and so forth. But in the room, we're going to start out with talking about the Zoom room controller. The Zoom room controller is going to allow for that friendly end user experience that all of your staff members are looking for. Basically speaking, anybody should be able to walk into that room and feel comfortable with either one, similar functionality as to using a smartphone on a daily basis, or two, if they've participated in meetings like we are right now, where they're using the Zoom room client or the Zoom meetings client from their desktop or mobile device, or Zoom webinar client, the user interface is almost identical. Another picture of the enclosure and the touchscreen. Probably one of the biggest benefits, and again, towards that easy use and functionality for people who are coming into the meeting, is that we will register this touchscreen to your current calendaring device or your current calendaring system. So Outlook calendar per se. It'll be a resource on your Office 365 deployment. And all of your meetings will show up as they do in this screenshot, allowing you to walk into the meeting, know that there's a meeting coming up, and being able to join that meeting with literally just one touch of a button. You'll also, once we have that device registered to your calendaring system and to your Zoom subscription, your current Zoom subscription, you'll have a directory that's populated. So all of your licensed Zoom users, potentially other Zoom rooms you may have in the future, as well as any favorites you may want to add to that directory, will all be populated, and again, could easily be invited to a meeting with just a click of a button. The second part of this solution is a professional AV design that includes that digital audio processor that I mentioned, combined with speakers located in the ceilings in appropriate spacing and in appropriate zones to cover the room for a quality audio experience. Again, one of the pain points that was mentioned prior to us starting here. The top part of this slide shows what we find is a very common issue, which is hotspots and also dead zones in an inefficiently designed audio coverage. The bottom example is what we're going to be providing you guys, which is an even listening plane that is void of any of those hot and or dead spots. And so not somebody sitting in the front row isn't going to get blasted out. Somebody in the back row not going to be able to hear. And this actually includes audio coverage for the commissioners and the board members that are sitting at the diocese table. Some of the speakers and the installation, kind of a example there. Again, with our goal of providing you a even sound distribution without the hot zones and or dead spots. Global Interactive Solutions, we are proudly celebrating our 25-year anniversary of providing AV and unified communication solutions across the world. What you see in this picture is one of the many courtrooms that we have done for the state of Oklahoma. Just an example of the quality of workmanship that Global Interactive Solutions provides its customers. Here's another Zoom room. Actually, it's 5 Zoom rooms in one. All of these walls are divisible walls. So this particular deployment is for the United Healthcare Workers Union in California. And they are able to use these 5 Zoom rooms in any combination of to do all of their meetings, town hall style when they use the room as one, or kind of small collaboration spaces as they close each one off and use them separately. We are a certified Zoom room integrator, and we can comfortably say that we have installed hundreds of Zoom rooms. As a matter of fact, I know that we have one large international accounting firm that we've done over 100 Zoom room installs for them just in the last 2 years. So the GIS story. So again, as we've highlighted, we're celebrating our 25-year anniversary of providing our customers AV integration and unified communication solutions. Our journey with Zoom actually started almost in the very beginning. We were one of the very first resellers that Zoom ever signed a direct contract with, and they did that. We did that with them back in early 2014. Again, certified Zoom room integrator. We're a certified Zoom phone reseller. In fact, was one of the very first partners to sell Zoom phone in their original beta program going back to 2019. We have certified Zoom sales and technical support specialists. And as we've already highlighted in the previous slide, physical installations in over 100 countries worldwide. Jen and Liz and Elisa have already experienced some of this, what we call the Global AV Solutions experience. But as we stated earlier, Ludwig Molnar, our feet on the ground in New Jersey, actually came to your location, did an extensive walkthrough documenting the current equipment, documenting again the kind of the pain points in discussing with your staff. He took extensive pictures and the locations of the current cameras, locations of the current speakers, AV rack, all of the wiring underneath the diocese table. Diocese table. So we've got a very, very accurate and detailed library of your current deployment. We reviewed your current equipment to assess what possibly can be reused in the new solution. We've done coordination with your staff, your third-party IT, and also met with your local internet and local cable provider to make sure that we have everything necessary to tie into those mediums to get your meetings out in the fashion that you desire. We've actually done a proposal review with your team prior to this presentation tonight. One of the other pain points that you currently are experiencing that we will definitely take care of is the lack of documentation, which would include AV plans, wiring designs and diagrams, basically an all-encompassing documentation of your solution that will be handed off to you after the installation so that any future integration into this room will be able to be done smoothly, regardless of whether that is GIS or if there's another partner you end up using, heaven forbid. There'll be pre-building and testing of your complete solution in our lab prior to deploying it to your location. And you'll have on-site installation by certified global AV solutions installers. Personalized training of your staff will be done, not only on-site, but also remotely, to ensure that they have the confidence to carry out these hybrids and virtual meetings going forward. I know that this was something that that your staff was very high on. Definitely having the ability for ongoing training and ongoing not only remote but on-site support of the solution to make sure that they're comfortable with knowing what buttons to push, knowing what features to use during meetings, so on and so forth. Again, a local presence. As we mentioned, Ludwig is there in New Jersey and is going to be your feet on the ground. And then our 25-year commitment to our customers of exceeding their expectations. I want to go into one other area of the solution that was highlighted in our presentation to your staff prior to this, but the complete solution, not only will it be documented, but it'll also be remotely accessible. This will allow, when a staff member calls us, for us to actually log into the solution, log into that AV rack, each individual device, be able to pinpoint where the possible failure point might be, whether that's a loose wire, whether that is maybe needing to tweak the digital program in the digital audio mixer to make sure that the audio levels in the room are exactly the way they should be. But you know, not one of these things that we're going to require your staff to go in and, you know, unplug things, you know, reboot things. All of this is going to be able to be done not only from a troubleshooting standpoint, but an ongoing maintenance standpoint remotely by our support staff, pushing updates to the platform, making sure that you're on the latest and greatest Zoom Room versioning or Zoom touch controller versioning on that 10-inch touch control panel. So those were things I wanted to highlight as far as the remote access to the solution and the remote troubleshooting of the solution. I'm not sure if Elisa has shared this with you. This is obviously just a few of our customers in the local and state government, as well as enterprise spaces. But the town of Bristol, Rhode Island, we actually won an RFP for them. And the solution that we are proposing to you guys is based off of that features and functionality. In fact, Elisa called the town of Bristol, Rhode Island earlier in the summer or earlier this fall, talked with Christopher there about the GIS experience and the solution that we provided them. So I wanted to also mention that. And then the final slide that I have before Phil kind of presents his AV plan. Here's our contact information. We have a 24/7 technical support hotline. We also have an email support email address. My direct contact information as far as the account manager goes.
Thank you for being so thorough. Could we move the presentation along a little faster, gentlemen, please?
You bet, no problem. And of course, our contact information for our New Jersey office. So I'll go ahead and let Phil jump in with the presentation of the AV plans. And appreciate you and appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. I'm glad that Cale covered those touch panels and the screen captures at the beginning of his presentation, because the hardware and all of the fancy racks of equipment and microphones and speakers really are just in support of that touch panel, that graphic user interface that allows you to do what you want to do, and it allows you to do it fairly easily. It allows you to do it without a lot of struggling or confusion or trying to figure out, how do I get from A to B? How do I show this camera? How do I do this? How do I do something that may stop a meeting in its tracks? So understanding that touch panel and how you as end users will eventually use it is one of the most important things we can talk about. And Zoom has done so much great research and human factors engineering to come up with an interface that's very, very intuitive, very easy to use, very easy to train on, and it's very functional. So rather than go over a bunch of racks and microphones and speakers and cables, I wanted to talk about that functionality that you've indicated to us in our previous meetings. What's important to you? What's a day in the life or an evening in the life of a council meeting or a hearing or some other event that might take place in this room? And earlier, we sent out a couple of drawings that sort of give you a quick indication, a quick overview of all of the things that we want to accomplish in this room. All the things that we've heard you say that you want to do. And this is how we hopefully will be able to accomplish them. Now I'm going to share my screen with a CAD design program. And we have a plan of your room. It's reasonably to scale based on all of Ludwig's site visit information and notes. And it's not exactly scale, but it shows representational of dais. It shows a seating area. It shows that little conference room over on the side, and then an IT AV room where the equipment rack will go. Now, those of you who had a chance to study this, but some of you may have not seen it, so we're going to zoom in just a little bit. And here we have dais with the microphones that you currently own, which are perfectly good and excellent quality Shure microphone, one microphone per person. We are then going to provide two images. The city will provide, but we're going to locate them as part of the system. The large screen LCD panels, one on each side. There's a location for a lectern for somebody who might be presenting, and there will be connections on the wall. I can highlight this. You might be able to see things as they get highlighted, but there's be a lectern with a microphone. And there will also be some outlets here in the rear corner for press and for media who want to come in. They can get a high quality signal directly off of the sound system. And then over here in the IT AV room, there's our equipment rack. So it looks deceptively simple, and hopefully it will be simple to operate, yet give you fairly high quality sound and video. I'd like to show you one other drawing very similar to this. This is a plan of the ceiling. You have this number of coffers, and we're showing these little blue squares are the loudspeakers in the ceiling. And this little dotted line around each loudspeaker is the area of its coverage. Loudspeakers are a lot like light bulbs. They have a pattern that covers certain area, and any for the same reason that you wouldn't want to try to light this entire room with one great big light up at the front blasting away at everyone. You want a smooth, even blanket of lighting. You want a smooth, even blanket of audio, of sound from a good, high quality professional loudspeaker. We've also shown there are 4 smaller loudspeakers over the dais, and this is to make sure that everyone up there is hearing the audience, people in the audience or people at the lectern when they speak. It's also kind of a little trick with method of making sure that you don't have a lot of feedback issues if you try to turn up the sound system. A lot of times we find in poor sound systems that are poorly designed and have too few speakers, they try to compensate that someone is in a dead zone. They turn the volume up, and the next thing you know, it's into that sort of oblivion squeal that just drives everybody nuts.
Mr. Cartier, could we keep this to just a couple more minutes? Please?
Okay, yes, sir.
We've reviewed the plans already. Thank you.
Okay, now there's a legend over here on each side, but basically we just kind of wanted to show you the functionality, and there are the camera locations as well. I want to show you one other drawing. We'll take a quick look under the hood, and we will generate some very detailed drawings about how all of the system interconnection. And this looks like a bunch of lines on paper. It is a bunch of lines on paper, but what it reveals, if we decide to zoom in, is that we have full documentation on the product, the manufacturer, the model number, all of the inputs, the outputs, the cable types, wire numbers, all the
Mr. Cartier, this is too much information for us.
Okay.
Please,
okay.
we have a long meeting and we have to get to a lot of other things tonight.
Okay. The idea is that 5 years from now, this information will still be here. I may be off in Timbuktu on vacation, but this information will still be here for whoever is working on the system.
Thank you, Phil.
Thank you for that. I know we have some questions. So one of my questions is, if I am not present in this, physically present at the meeting, I'm at a different location, will I be able to participate? Will people be able to see me? Will I be able to see the people?
Absolutely. If I may jump in.
Sure.
Yes, this is for the future, the world of hybrid meetings. That's exactly where we're going into. You will have people participating by voice, by video, from their iPad, Android, touch panel, any which way. Yes.
Just if you would remember, presenters, to state your name for purposes of the transcript, that would be,
Sure.
Zoom transcript helpful. Thanks.
Understood. My name is Werner Richter, and I'm the president of GABS. So yes, this is for, just like we have it today, this meeting, you can hold a webinar, you can record it, you can stream it live. It'll have integration to your television station coverage. The whole idea, just like you have it today, you can stream it on YouTube. That's the world that we're living in, and we will continue to live in. So yes, it's planned for that.
And for an outside participant or somebody who was, joining the meeting, they would do it through conventional Zoom, that type of link. Is that correct?
Correct.
So they would not need any special equipment or anything else. They would use it just the way we did now. It's just a smoother integration of the room itself.
Absolutely.
Any other questions about anyone?
Me. Can someone
Good.
speak to the how this doesn't cost us anything part? I don't understand how that works.
We have a, excuse me, a franchise agreement with the cable company. And part of that agreement, they have agreed to pay for upgrades to our AV system and our AV room and, everything that associated with it.
So Jeff, everything that has been covered here will be covered by them.
Correct. Correct.
Thank you.
And you guys are like licensed by Zoom, and by that I mean were other platforms examined? We hear about Microsoft Teams, or we hear about other platforms. Were they considered?
Yes, so Zoom is part of an ecosystem, so you can use Microsoft Teams today to join this meeting, okay? You're going to see actually the Zoom Rooms particular solution that other platforms, you can have join them. This is exactly the world we live in, where everybody, it's called BYOD, everybody brings their own device, brings their own solution, and they have to coexist. That's part of the beauty of an open solution where we basically plan for the future already. Is it going to be 100% of everything that's going to come out tomorrow? What I'd like to say is, Zoom isn't going to go away, and nor is Microsoft. So all the platforms are working around this, making sure that this ecosystem can work together. Okay, because I think that's the one thing we've all learned, that I've practiced it for 25 years, but now we know that video conferencing UC isn't going to go away, and all of the people, whether they use tomorrow's iPhone, the touch panel, whatever they throw at it, has to kind of be able to be integrated.
I have one more question. Does this agreement also covers any type of future updates and as well as support for any type of issues with the technology in the future?
Yeah, the quote includes a 1 year parts and labor, the on-site installation, et cetera. However, we are and have done this for many customers, that will be for future years, where we can offer you a maintenance contract so that we can continue to support, maintain, update the solution as you see fit.
Jeff, it might be beneficial for us to have an idea of what the cost of that support will be afterwards.
Okay, right. And we're also talking about using A1 in addition to GIS to help with our current agreements with them, with A1.
And if we decide to go with you guys, how long would it take for you to install it?
Yeah, so basically we're expecting somewhere between 4 to 8 weeks after receipt of order, because we'll order the equipment, we'll pre-build it here, we test it, we deliver it to the site and install it, commission it, and then train you on using it.
Okay. Any other questions? And if we wanted to see how this worked, we could look at, you said Bristol, we can go online, maybe even see how Bristol looks.
We can send you some, go ahead.
Well, I'll just say that in a couple of weeks, they're doing their budget workshops with this system. If you wanted, I could share those links with you.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe Elisa already saw some videos of their solution in working fashion. So if there's any other mediums that we can facilitate on that project, we'd be happy to do that also.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, thank you for your presentation. I appreciate it. And we'll discuss it and get back to you guys.
You bet. We appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, the next item will be the public people, the opening up the floor. If anybody have any comments, anything they want to say? Is there anybody, Jen?
Yes, somebody just raised their hand.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, sorry. Hi, this is Corey Warshell. I'm here on behalf of Piccola Trattoria and also on behalf of some of the other restaurants. I know that the parklets are on the agenda next, and Kathy and Dave are also on the line from the cookery and the parlor. And so we weren't sure if we would get the opportunity to speak during the parklet section or if we should just give some commentary now. But we wanted to say thank you to the village for all of their support through this very, very difficult time. And it's really, your support has made it so that our restaurants are able to stay in business. And they've also been, I think, something that's helped the community really feel it's given some normalcy to the community. So we're very grateful for that. We did send a letter on January 27th that addressed some points that we were interested in discussing. Most importantly, the reopening of the parklets in the spring, in March, hopefully. And it's something that we think the community has really loved, and it's something that the restaurants really need in order to continue to operate. We're really operating on the margin right now, and hanging on by a thread. So the parklets were instrumental in keeping us in business in the last season, and we believe they will be also going forward. We'd like the village to please consider putting the parklets in place for the year so that we can do planning, and when we invest in making the parklets the best they can, we know that that's something that's going to be longer term. And additionally, we wanted to just throw in there that with respect to the lighting, we tried last year to use the solar lighting, but that really wasn't successful at all. They're ineffective, and they don't provide the type of lighting that we need in order to have a vibrant restaurant parklet. So we'd like you also to consider that as part of the parklet program. Thank you.
Okay, well, Corey, let me just say, we value certainly the restaurants and all our businesses downtown. And I think, you're certainly considered partners, and we want to do what we can to help you guys and everybody downtown to succeed. Before we get into that, I just want to know, Jen, is there anybody else who wants to speak about anything else from courtesy of the floor?
I see somebody with a 917 number that has their hand raised, but that might be Kathy and Dave.
So let's just talk right now. I just want to get to people who don't have who want to address the parklet issue. Is there anybody out there who wants to speak about anything but the parklets?
No.
Okay.
No one else has their hand raised.
Okay, so then we can go to the next action item on our agenda, which is a discussion concerning the parklets. And I know, is it Kathy is there? Right, you want to speak? Go ahead.
Kathy, can you hear us?
She needs to push *6, I think.
Hey,
Hello?
guys.
Hey, are you there?
Kathy and David.
We hear you. We hear you guys.
What's going on? How are you?
Good.
We basically just want to second what Corey said, and thank you guys so much for having this on the agenda. And we also just wanted to, ask you guys again if what would be super helpful would be to know that we have sort of the parklets for the remainder of the year, so we can invest in them and plan for their use. And if there is any way, if the village is in a position to be able to, waive the fees, that would also be extremely, extremely helpful. And as far as the string lights, again, we did try the solar lights. They are like duds. It's like, doesn't even give off as much light as like a candle. So we were hoping that we could either, use an extension cord from the restaurant. I mean, I think each restaurant would just need one outlet, one extension cord, or tapping into whatever outlets the village uses for their Christmas lights. And I think that's all. We just wanted to reinforce everything Corey said. So thank you guys for everything and for this opportunity.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have to say that I during the summer, at least for us, I mean, that letting us have the parklets was a power move in terms of saving our ass. So we really appreciate it. And you can see the drastic numbers decrease in terms of our business and energy and everything else after November hit, when you just couldn't sit outside. It was pretty horrific. And not just that it sort of helped us monetarily stay on our feet, which was huge, but it really, I feel like, boosted the morale just for myself, my staff, and a lot of our customers who really sort of felt like the energy in the town was real, and you know, it's something they could see being there indefinitely at some point. But I just want to say that it was amazing, and thank you, and I hope you do consider to keep them for at least a year. So thank you.
You're welcome. I think as a way of background, maybe Laura Lee, if you could just clarify, we're discussing this because the agreement ended and we have to, if we want to go forward with it, we have to extend it. Is that correct?
That is correct. You did an extension for the winter, offering restaurants the choice to keep their parklets, or for the parklet holders to actually have a parking space outside of their restaurant designated to assist with picking up takeout. So yes, you would need to initiate the next stage of the parklet program. You'd need to establish whatever parameters and new rules and considerations, and then we would have to resend license agreements and offer the parklet program to across the board to the restaurants that qualify.
And not to put you on the spot, but the past program was, we allowed, and maybe someone else could jump in if Laura Lee can't, but we allowed how many parklets for each area, and what was the cost?
Well, you've had two iterations of this. I can call up the license agreement. You did state that it could be no more than 2 parking spaces, and it couldn't extend past the parameters of the facade of the building. I know that we had established fees, and then you later revised those fees, but we were basing the program on the fact that you'd be losing parking revenue. So during the hours that the meters were otherwise going to be used, you were asking the restaurants to provide you with reimbursement for the fact that you were forgiving or giving up that amount of revenue into the budget, which you had already anticipated.
Jeff, do you remember how much?
How much we generated, or how much each spot was?
How much each spot was?
$250 per parking spot.
And we
It was
paid for
max
how many
3 spaces. It was max 3 spaces.
Max 3. And how many barriers did we end up buying? Does anyone recall?
I
Steve,
do not.
Steve, do you know?
About 50.
50. And how much was each barrier?
350, 375, somewhere on there each.
Okay. So now we have that background. Does anybody want to jump in and tell us what you're thinking?
Start. No, you want to start?
No, you should go. I was going to say you should go for it. You have a very interesting plan. So.
Okay. So we have a limited number of barriers that we purchased as an exact amount for how many people had signed up last year. And ideally, we would be able to open this up to new businesses who didn't participate last year, but have continued to struggle for various reasons. So I would propose that we set out with the same plan as last year, but have a max of 2 parking spaces out the gate to allow for any other businesses who didn't participate to do so this time around. and then have a closing window for applications so that at a certain point we'll know how much more supplies we have to allot for more spaces, and then allow up to 3 after that. Because I'm not sure that there's that many additional businesses that would want to participate, because we had quite a big turnout for it, but we should give the chance for that to happen. And we have a lot of barriers. So I would say the questions we have are around the number of barriers that we used last time and whether or not that was overly overdone, and if there was any way of using fewer so that we could spread them out over more businesses and not have to procure more. And I don't know about that. I think that would be Ed. I'm not sure who would answer that question. And then with Lori Lee, if this is a new, like if we're starting from scratch here because we're allowing new businesses, this wouldn't be just an extension of the plan that we have, because the plan we have was with specific people already.
Right.
So would we have to start from scratch, or would we just start a new plan for other people, or how that would work?
You would present this as a program for the 2021 season or year, depending on the parameters you're interested in. You passed this last June because you saw that the shutdown had extended, as we all did, past the couple weeks that we thought that it would take. So this started in June. But if you're amenable to starting in March, then we can set a new program for 2021 with new parameters and the rules and procedures. You can find out how many of your restaurant owners are interested in participating, and that will give you an idea going forward. I think you polled. Have you polled already this year to find out the level of interest? And if so, then it's a matter of developing a new parameters, rules and procedures, and then you could pass a resolution establishing the program anew. This isn't an extension per se. You extended it through the initial year, looking on the initial year ended at the end of October. Then you made an extension and forgave fees through the end of November. And then, you went further to offer the parking space for pickup of takeout to the parklet license holders using the space that was involved with the parklet or keeping the parklet in place. So those were sort of the 3 phases of last year's. But again, planning for the year upfront will allow the restaurants to know in advance what parameters you're considering.
I have a conversation with the mayor a few months back about establishing this as a standard tradition in Dobbs Ferry. I mean, if one thing that one good thing that COVID-19 left was seeing how beautiful the village looked with all of this outdoor dining set up. And is it possible for us to set this up as a standard seasonable process in the village, where it starts at a specific time? If we decide to do March or April, ended around the October time, and something to be as a permit that the restaurants can purchase every year, so that we don't have to be always doing this process again and again, and of course establishing a fee just as we do for like the sidewalk cafe. Is this even an option?
You can do that by local legislation, and that's clearly within your purview and your ability to do so. However, that being said, you basically undertook this program for purposes of general health and safety of your residents and the public. And the other consideration is it was only because the Alcohol Beverage Commission in Albany agreed to extend the license of the restaurant owner to that space. So you know, without knowing what ABC and Albany is thinking post-pandemic, you could create this program and then have no one interested because they wouldn't be able to necessarily serve alcoholic beverages within the parklet, and it, you know, it would limit their usefulness to the local businesses.
Are they not allowed to use alcoholic beverages in sidewalk cafes?
They can, because the sidewalk cafes are adjacent, right adjacent, but these are across the public right of way into the parking spaces. So it was an additional act by ABC in furtherance of the public health and safety to accommodate this time. So we don't know whether virtual meetings will be extended. We don't know whether ABC is going to extend this as being a success, like your virtual meetings have been a success. It's unknown. So I might recommend that you take up the parklet as a program for this calendar year, given that the vaccines are rolling out, and you know we're approaching the ability to control the virus, knock on wood. And so maybe you could take this up as local legislation thereafter, once you have an idea of what Albany is interested in helping and doing in terms of extension of the alcoholic beverages.
I think another consideration would have to be, I think it's a great idea. And I know what Amara was saying about, it was nice seeing all those people dining outdoors, but we also have to understand that before COVID hit, we had a bit of a parking problem in the downtown. Now, when it comes back, hopefully, you know, sooner rather than later, and people are starting to frequent more than just the restaurants in town, the stores, et cetera, parking, people coming in and out, we have to be very careful about giving up parking spaces. Especially
99-seater.
Especially if the restaurants are able to have practically full capacity inside. So that would be my biggest hesitation with continuing the program past the COVID period.
You also
everything points to doing this, you know, for this year, and seeing in the fall or, you know, end of the season, what do we want to do going forward? I don't disagree, Maura, that, you know, it's a really nice amenity for the village to have, but we're not in a position, I don't think, to make a permanent decision at this point.
Well, it's something to consider for the future. And in addition to that, I think that the business owners then should take ownership on monitoring how Albany will change the licenses for their serving alcohol in those spots. And, you know, maybe we can be the pioneer in initiating an initiative to do this, where that particular rule will change. I just wanted to throw it out there because it's something that I really would love to see in Dobbs Ferry, and something just, you know, to keep on the books and see if there's something that we can do in the future.
I think it's a good idea, but let's talk about, and I think we should. Let's talk about this parklet program now. So I just want to get a consensus. Are we all, because I don't think we're all in favor of how long it may go, and we could talk about that, but are we all in favor of the concept of the parklet, continuing the parklets?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
My concern, Mr. Mayor, is the concern that I have with the snow. I think that I saw way too many issues with the snow that was left behind in some of these. And I know that that agreement that we had involved restaurants being responsible for the cleaning of the snow. And I was very disappointed when I saw that that was not being done and they were not in compliance.
Well, Christy had some interesting points when she sent her memo around to us about, you know, let's do it bit by bit. Let's go to the fall and then look at it again, see where we're at, then go where we need to go. And maybe we can do the winter, or maybe we can't, but maybe we should do it in increments to see how it goes and see what's happening.
You know, I understand your point, Donna, but I'm going to tell you, I spoke very closely with a lot of the business owners, and they need to plan. They have to plan season by season. So I think that it would be great for us to just establish what we will do from now. If we want to end it by, let's say, Thanksgiving, like I think that we say, or if we want to extend that, I think it will be best for us to establish an end day from the beginning, because these restaurants have to plan in advance.
Right.
Yeah. Good with that. So I think Christie's idea of initially offering it, you know, 2 spaces and then rolling it out who else is interested. I think that's a good approach. So do we start at like March 15th and end at November 15th, or March 1st and end at November 1st? What's the feeling on that?
My suggestion would be we start it as soon as we can in March. Maybe that is March 15th, and end it Thanksgiving weekend. There's not a lot of risk of snow in the month of November, and Thanksgiving is a big gathering time. I mean, one could hope that the restaurants are going to be back at 100% capacity by the fall, and there won't be interest in outside dining, come, late November, December, because nobody wants to sit outside in the cold, and they'll have choices.
Okay, so we okay with March 15th as the starting date?
Yes.
Okay, and I think Thanksgiving weekend, that's whatever that date is, we could do that.
Are we limiting it just, I mean, the whole conversation's been about restaurants. I know that a non-restaurant had asked us for a parklet too. Are we opening it up to all the businesses? Is it just whoever, are we just gonna post it and then whoever responds?
I would say if there's a way of, any business that's been impacted by capacity is really what this is aiming to support. Because if you can't have the same number of people in your space for whatever your business is, because you're only allowed to have 50%, 25%, and you can figure out a way to use a parklet to help support you in the next, in the coming months, then those businesses should also be able to participate. So, I mean, I'm not sure, I wouldn't call anybody out individually, but I feel like if you had a capacity restriction, that would be what this is built for.
Well, we do have a capacity restriction, well, two maybe. One, do we want to buy more barriers if there are more businesses? And at some point, to Donna's earlier observation, we would have a parking problem if 80% of the businesses in town decided they wanted to have a parklet in front of their store.
We had this debate the first time around, and we were worried that so many businesses were going to request parklets that we wouldn't have any parking, and that's not how it turned out. We didn't get the demand that the worst concerns voiced. So I think, and I think to Trustee Sullivan's point, we have to open it up to other businesses. It's fair. It's the sensible thing to do, and if they need it, that's what we should be doing. I think we had a cap on the last time around. We didn't fill that cap, and that's why we offered the third parking space to a number of businesses. I think we should start again with that cap, see where we land. If we are over it significantly, we can talk again, but my suspicion is we'll land right around where we did last time.
Yeah, and I think we have to also be careful about having to buy more barriers, because that is an expense for the village and we're not getting it back. And I think that's also a point as to why I think it's necessary to charge for the spaces, because obviously if they're free, everybody will take them. So, and that we do need to help the businesses. So I think, $250 seemed to work out last year. I would suggest $250 again.
Okay, how do we feel about $250?
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Can we push it out to April 1st? Only because we may get some freaky snowstorms in March.
Yeah, that's true.
There is a question on here about, can you make the option available for businesses to conduct their own barriers like in New York City? Construct them, like to build them themselves, but I'm not sure about that question.
I think we debated this the first time around, and we concluded we were gonna have one program and run it that way. I think if we get it
for safety,
really
yeah.
Agree, Stephen. Agree.
Okay, so how does the 250? I mean, it seemed to work last time. Are we okay with the 250?
Can we swing 200, Jeff? Can we swing 200?
I would actually also, agree to something lower than that. I think there does have to be some kind of a fee, because, otherwise everyone would just want one because it doesn't cost them anything. With 200, or, because we did get some money back relative. Jeff, do you know off the top of your head how much of the cost the village recouped?
Around half.
Jeff, do we have any delinquency of any issues with harlots not being paid?
There is one.
I will agree with Larry that maybe going a little bit lower, I will be okay with that.
Me too. I don't think we should ever be in a position where we're where we're making money on these. So I'd be okay lowering the amount also.
Okay, so I know Christie's going to be on that, so I guess we have at least 4 people.
I have a question for Jeff. How much do the parking spaces, the revenue generate?
Each individual spot you're asking me, or like in the budget itself?
Well, I guess because if we're setting a fee,
So if Rick was to
yeah, but that's
sell a permit for a daily for a parking spot, it would be $20 a day.
But our revenue, I'm certain, has been substantially less than that.
Yeah.
Just anecdotally seeing the village empty, right? I mean, people aren't driving and going to the village the same way.
We're talking historically though, you know what I mean?
Right, right. So I'm just saying we wouldn't get that same amount of revenue over the next several months.
Probably, depending on how things turn around. Fingers crossed.
So the number is between 20 and 250, right?
So I think people were saying towards 200, right? So if we're all okay with 200, is that reasonable?
Is that okay with Jeff?
Well, Jeff would say
it's your decision, Donna. It's your decision.
And again, it's 200 per space per month.
Right.
Correct.
That's $400 for the month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going to do the maximum 2 spaces, or are you going to do a maximum of 3 spaces?
I'm voting 2 spaces.
Yeah, I think like Christie.
And I don't think we can promise anything until we know exactly how many spaces are requested. But the target would be, 2 spaces if people want them, and if there's enough space and they have the frontage, then 3 would be okay.
The problem with that is Sam's already has 3 spots.
Right.
This is a new program, so
Okay, I'm
if
just
they
saying.
can't have 3 spots, then they wouldn't be able to have 3 spots.
Right.
And hopefully, Steve, anybody who wants 3 spots will be able to get it. But
Right, it was only double days and Rabbit and Sam's only 3 because their storefronts were bigger.
Right.
Everybody else.
Okay.
Mayor, there's somebody with their hand raised. Do you want to hear from anybody else?
Is it
And the other issue is, are we going to allow
Kathy
them
and
to
Dave again.
build electric?
It's Kathy?
Hold on, I want to know what Stephen has to say. Stephen, could you please ask your question before we allow anybody else
Other
to speak?
issue is about the electric. Are we going to allow them to use the village electric?
No, that sounds dangerous to me. I think whatever
Agreed.
lighting, again, I don't know what the code is. I think we should work within the code when it comes to lighting. And I'll leave that to the building inspector to decide that along with you, Steve. But it just seems to me that everything should be up to code on that.
But Stephen, I have a question about that. What about our holiday lights that we normally plug on our trees throughout the holiday season? Can they do the same for the restaurants?
The village would be picking up their
We'd
electricity
be
bill.
picking up the electricity. I don't think we should be picking up their electric.
No, I agree with you, but I'm saying, could they use the same type of voltage or the of lighting that we use for the village, even if it comes out of their store?
Yeah, again, that would be up to the building department.
Yeah,
They
I
were
think that,
asking
Mr.
for that.
Mayor, I think that that's something that we definitely need to consider because
Yeah, remember they'll have they'll have extension cords running across the sidewalks.
Could they string them overhead?
If it's high enough where people can't hang themselves.
let's just look for opportunities on this one. Let's not cross it off completely and make sure that we are able to be open-minded about doing it.
Yeah.
I think that there are products that allow for that type of thing.
Yeah.
And I would just say that if that if the building department is in agreement that it's a code compliant method, then as a board, we're okay with it. But if the building department is not approving it, then we're not going to overrule them.
I agree with you, Michael, but we as a village has to follow our own rules. That's all I ask.
Yeah, I think it can be done. Is my point. Is just they have these rubber, protection devices, and I think that's what makes it code compliant. You see it. You see them used elsewhere. So I'm just saying that the restaurants would have to buy this thing, make sure it's the right product, and Mr. Manley approves it, and then it's fine.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think we're okay with this. It starts April 1st. It ends, I don't have a calendar in front of me, but the Thanksgiving weekend, Laura Lee, you could put that in there. It's $200 per space per month. Initially, it'll be maximum of two spaces per business. We'll see how if there's any openings, we'll allow people to go to the third. And the lights must be code compliant, whatever that works out to be.
Okay. If there's any chance that we're potentially doing this again, and we can charge in future years and there's less risk about, I guess we're talking about parking meters, but if there's any way we can come down more, then I just know from firsthand, like rent alone is really hard to pay just for the actual rent for most small business owners. And so if we can make this, do we hear 150, guys? Come on, we can do it. We can do it.
We have a fiduciary responsibility to the rest of our residents as well. And again, they're all parking spaces. I mean, if everybody wants to go, I just think that's kind of really pushing it. We've paid for the barriers. We're giving up the spaces. Hopefully the businesses will be doing, I know they need help. I totally understand what you're saying, but I think there are other considerations that we have as well.
I also think that if we're going to consider, and I think we should, because it was a big success last year, shutting down the streets. That's another big expense for us that benefits everyone. And I'd rather see us do that a couple of times than lower the price for parklets. Most of the restaurants were able to do it in the worst of COVID. And I feel like people are more comfortable now going out. Because even outside, like I didn't really eat outside. I ate outside twice in COVID. I wasn't really comfortable. I think a lot of people are seeing, but now with the vaccine, I think more people will be entertaining themselves outside. Or I hope for our town's sake.
I just think that the closing of the street was such a significant cost to us as a village that I don't really support that whole closing of the street. I think it was too costly for us.
Okay, so are we okay with the 200, or does the majority want to go lower?
I would be comfortable going down to 175. The difference, Jeff, what is it? It's 50, barriers times, that would be $25 a month. So, maybe this amplifies Christie's point. It's, I think, a bigger deal to the restaurants to have that incremental amount of savings. I do think it has, I wouldn't be comfortable below that, because I think, people the businesses need to be willing to do this and make a commitment to it rather than just take it as a free gift. But I'm also okay if it stays at 200. I just think at least we've made a gesture to lower the price.
And I remind everyone on the board that when we did this the first time around, the expectation was that, with the number that we agreed per parklet, was that we would recoup half the money. And so now extending this for another year means, we're going to recoup almost all the money. So a year ago, we were willing to forego half of that money in exchange for keeping the restaurants afloat. So I think that that's a case that, let's look at what we decided at that point. We were willing to use village money to support the restaurants. I think recouping any amount in addition to what we already have is just a benefit. So I'm happy to lower this amount more so that if that's going to help the restaurants further.
I think we also anticipated when we had that discussion last year that we would be here again discussing parklets for the coming year. I think that was part of the thought process too. I mean, I don't know that 175 or 200 is breaking the bank for us. So if other people are on board for it, I could agree with the 175. And we have supported the restaurants a lot, and we gave them free parklets after the first program ended. We closed down the streets a lot, and we want to continue supporting them. But I think Don is right. We have fiduciary obligations to the entire village that we have to be mindful of. So it's just a balancing act.
All right, so it sounds like we have 4 people who are at 175, right? That would be Nicole, Mike, Larry, and Christy. So, oh, and Laura. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so let's move it to 175.
And let's think about this, I'm hoping that this will continue to push people to park at 99 Cedar, that continues to be empty, and whatever revenue we are losing on Main Street, hopefully we will make it up on 99 Cedar, because there's meters in here as well.
Okay. All right, so Laura Lee, you'll draw that up, and then what? We have to pass that next meeting?
Yeah, I'll have it ready in resolution form, in draft. Of course, you made some changes last year as we went along, so I'll get it in draft, circulate it, make sure it's what you want to do, and then I'll start to work with Elisa and Richard in making sure that rules and procedures are updated and the license agreements are back to being square, and whatever we need to do to coordinate with ABC to be sure that the restaurants have the ability to move their licenses across the right of way into the parking spaces.
And that's one thing that I want to ask, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, all of the businesses, please be in compliance with the rules and regulations that they're going to be created. Don't be delinquent with your bill. Is that we're working very hard here to try to work with you and to help you. So, it will be great if everybody can just be in compliance with the rules and regulations that we set up, and as well as the payments.
Okay, and I think Laura Lee, you raised a good point about the alcohol laws. If that changes halfway through, that it may change the whole thing. So it's an interesting point.
So
okay, I want to thank you, Steve.
Mayor, Kathy and Dave still have their hand up.
Okay.
Kathy, can you unmute yourself with *6?
And Kathy and Dave should introduce themselves too, please.
One more time, Kathy.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Can you guys hear us now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
We just wanted to add our 2 cents on the discussion of the cost of the parklets. And one, I just want to mention that many restaurants, because of we're still in a pandemic, we're in the thick of it. When it first started, we were at 50% capacity. We're still at 50% capacity. We had these winter months with no outdoor dining, so it's a lot of restaurants. It's safe to say are very behind on their rent. So I don't think you guys should be thinking about it in terms of I think we should just be thinking about this year, because hopefully after this year, if this is something the village decides to continue, not just for the restaurants, but for village life and for the residents, then I think fees should absolutely be, debated, but I think, or considered. But I just want to mention that there's a lot of restaurants. This is just additional rent from our perspective, and we're already behind on rent. So this is about at the end of the pandemic, whenever we're able to go back up to 100% capacity, not being that much more saddled with debt and not having to consider potentially giving, keeping a restaurant or not, because we're saddled with so much debt. And it's not just rent, it's all the other expenses, vendors, purveyors, you name it. So I just want to mention, we have restaurant friends all over the county, and I'm sure you guys have already surveyed the county and other villages and what they're charging restaurants. But from everything we've heard, there's not a village that's charging for parklets during this time. And that's just what we've heard from the people we've talked to, the restaurants our restaurant friends in other villages. In fact, and I've shared this with a few board members, we've actually heard quite the opposite, that not only are villages not charging, but they're actually investing in beautifying the parklets. We have invested thousands of dollars in beautifying our parklets and making them, welcoming. And and part of this discussion is we want to know if we can, have them for obviously a longer period of time so we can actually justify, that continued investment. It's something you almost have to do seasonally. So I also want to mention that it's not just $175 or $200 or $250. We have two parklets. Some restaurants have 3, some have 1. But if on average restaurants have 2 parklets, we're actually talking about $500 or $400. And again, that doesn't seem like a lot of money, but when you're already behind on rent, and it's a consideration. So I just want to mention those things. Again, we appreciate everything. I don't want to sound ungrateful. We're so grateful, but I do want to mention those things because they are a reality. And I bet if you polled residents, they would, even with the parking situation in Dobbs Ferry, which we all obviously aware of, if you polled residents, I would almost guarantee that they would prefer outdoor dining and giving up those parking spaces for their own benefit over the parking spots for their own benefit. So I just wanted to mention those things, and thank you so much for letting us chime in.
There's one more hand raised, Mayor. Michelle Adams.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Thank you, guys. Michelle Adams from Harper's and also representing the Chamber of Commerce. I just want to reiterate everything Kathy said. That is also the position of the Chamber on behalf of our members. And I just want to point to a little more evidence as to what we're talking about on businesses being behind. The federal government approved a second round of PPP loans, increased the amount specifically for restaurants because of the financial burdens that we're under that's unique to other small businesses. And they're also even in the process of discussing an additional grant that would be put into that would be signed into law in addition to the PPP. And that we're looking at, hearing what that's going to be settled at, beginning of March. But on a federal level, it's pretty evident, the position that restaurants are in. And I think that it can't be understated. And I hope you'll take that into consideration. Thanks.
Thanks, Michelle.
Do we have any information about these other municipalities of what they're doing, not what they did during the pandemic, but what are they doing moving forward, Michelle?
Richard, you do. You're on mute, Richard.
Yeah, we have an administrative association of all the managers and administrators all over the county. So I sent out a request for their response. So I'm still waiting to get it back. I can share it with you. Hopefully, maybe at the time of the resolution, I'll have a response.
There'll be more discussion available once the resolution is in front of you on the 9th, and you can entertain more discussion at that point.
This is what happened last time, and I guess it's going to happen again. We just put it forth, and then we talk among ourselves, we think about it, and then we come to a, so I think this is a good, we got it going here, and then we'll get more information in time to actually vote on it.
Yes. Yes, and again, you're taking comments tonight, but during your courtesy of the floor at your next meeting, when that resolution will be on your agenda, you'll be taking comments as well. So
right. Okay, so let's move on. Thank you, everybody. Let's move to action item number 2, which is to consider a motion to certify and approve the 2020-2021 Dobbs Ferry Volunteer Ambulance Corps Service Award points listing as submitted by the Dobbs Ferry Volunteer Ambulance Corps. We have that information in our packet as to who's entitled to it. Is there a motion? Trustee Nell, second. Trustee Taylor, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Action item number 3, consider a motion to certify and approve the 2020-2021 Dobbs Ferry Volunteer Firefighters Service Award points listing as submitted by the Dobbs Ferry Volunteer Fire Department. Again, we have a listing of all the members who are eligible and what they're eligible for. Is there a motion? Trustee Sullivan, second. Trustee DeRozzi, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Action item number 4. Consider a motion to approve the audit of claims as submitted and recommended by the village treasurer. Jeff, do you have anything to add?
Nothing additional unless there's questions.
Okay. Is there a motion? Trustee Darazi, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? That passes unanimously. Action item number 5, consider a motion to schedule a public workshop on Tuesday, March 2nd, 2021 at 6:30 via Zoom to discuss the tentative budget for 2021 and 2022, and to schedule a public hearing on Tuesday, April 13th at 6:30 via Zoom to discuss the 2021-2022 tentative budget for the village of Dobbs Ferry. This is something that we do every year. We have a public workshop where we meet with the leaders, the supervisors of each department, and we listen to their requests for money. And then we have the public hearing where the public can weigh in and watch what we do for the budget. So you want to add anything to that, Jeff?
No, that's exactly what we're looking to do.
Okay. Is there a motion to schedule these meetings? Trustee Taylor, second. That passes unanimously. Action item number 6 is to consider a motion to add Miss Adriana Rivera as a member of the Dobbs Ferry Volunteer Fire Department and to have her name placed into the active insurance rolls. We received a letter dated February 15th, 2021 from the fire department asking us to do so. Is there a motion? Trustee Taylor, second. Trustee Patino, all in favor? And that passes unanimously. We move to the minutes. Does anybody have any comments? Oh, I forgot. I added something and then I totally neglected it. So action item number 7 is authorize the mayor to sign an intermunicipal agreement accepting the funds for the Gould Park grants. And while we're doing that, we can talk about the Gould Park playground. So let's talk about the playground. Nicole, do you want to start, or Mike?
Sure. After the presentation at the last meeting 2 weeks ago, I contacted Ms. Garrison to request that we have pricing for an ad alternate for a better playground, higher spec playground for the 2 to 5-year-old children. That requires a redrawing from the county. The bid documents were prepared by the county. Some subsequent discussions, we learned that we needed an extension on the grant just because of the due dates and some other issues. I believe that has been resolved. The extension has been given to us, and the county has agreed to, in timely fashion, revise their documents contingent on this different specification for the playground for the younger kids. While we were looking at an estimate, Ms. Garrison presented an estimate. It was not a bid, but we are estimating that this change in the playground will be a $50,000 increase to what the estimate was. We obviously would like some sense about the likelihood of the board favoring that proposal, so that when we do get the estimate, the bids in, and they do come in $50,000 higher, we're not surprised, and we don't have to go back, redo the drawings, rebid again, and risk putting the grant beyond the date by which we have to finish. So the goal, I think, tonight is, and I've spoken to everyone here at some point, and we had a meeting about it a few days ago, but the goal would be to make a decision about which direction we should proceed with for the bidding phase of this project. The original, as we were presented to last week, or a modified version that includes a more expensive playground for younger children.
Thank you. Comments?
It looks like Kendra is here. Kendra, can you talk a little bit about your opinion in terms of the difference, the increment, and the advantages of this more expensive proposal?
It is very similar to the older kids piece. I did send a picture earlier today. So
Yeah.
it's just a smaller version of it with lots of climbing and slides. And a little bit more for the kids to do than the little houses. I mean, other than that, I'm not sure what else I can really say about it.
I mean, I guess I'm asking is your opinion that this is a worthy incremental upgrade in the equipment.
You know, put me right on the spot. Yeah, I think it is.
Well, you're the one who knows the most on this call. So, you know, from your experience, I'm interested. And you think it is? You're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think it will be nice to do it. I agree with Michael.
I do too. I mean, I think this park is becoming a showpiece for the village, and with the pool and everything else, I don't think we're supposed to cheap out on the playground. I think it's an amenity that particularly people who are thinking about moving to the village will see and appreciate, you know, if they're coming with young families or planning young families.
No less than we met, Jeff, you had some concerns. You want to address that?
It's just, you know, it's 50,000 additional funding. The fundraising didn't raise as much as we were hoping. The amount raised so far is around 125,000. So it would be a decision on your part where you would want to allocate funding from, whether it's a rec fund, whether it's fund balance.
Is there enough money in the rec fund to cover this?
There's enough money in the rec fund to cover increases.
Because personally, I think 50,000 is a lot of money, but whatever. We do have fiduciary responsibility, as I keep saying. I would prefer that it come out of the rec fund because that's what that money is used for, rather than the general fund or a fund balance, which we need for other costs in the village.
How much is in the rec fund, Jeff?
About 161,000 today.
Okay, but I think we've already allocated 100,000 to this project for the matching part of the grant, and then I think we were missing additional money. Kendra, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we talked about at the last board meeting of another 50,000 before this that we were supposed to vote on whether we should use that. So wouldn't that leave 11,000 in the rec fund?
100,000 was transferred.
Oh, that's out of it?
Yeah, that's out of there.
Oh.
You approved that, I don't know, a year or so ago, if not a little more.
Okay, so the 161 is in addition to that 100,000. Oh, okay,
Correct.
so you have the money in the rec fund. Okay.
Yeah, aren't we going to be getting more money from 41 Cedar?
Yes.
Ever get a permit? If they ever get a permit.
If they come in, yeah.
Yeah, assuming 41 and some of the other pending projects move forward, there will be expectations that there'll be some replenishment of the rec fund as well. Is that right?
Can we use the rec fund for the, you know, it's not just the playground piece, because that's a nice addition. And I agree, we've been talking about this for, I don't know, 2 years plus, and we've always wanted to have, you know, a better playground structure and, you know, park area there. But, you know, funds were more limited a couple of years ago than they seem to be today. So that's good. And that COVID kind of gave us an extension, so we're able to do something different, but we still have to do all the landscaping and the staircase. I mean, can we use the rec fund for any of that too, just to complete the park? Because it'd be great to complete it, not just have a nice pool and a playground, but then not have the staircase or the landscaping done.
And yeah, as far as I know, that can be used for anything within the parks.
Okay.
So, all right. You know, you can talk about it in the budget process as well if you wanted to, allocate any towards those projects in the next coming budget.
Yeah, that was my
Do we
next.
have an do we have an estimate of how much those projects will cost individually?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, they sent it around earlier today. The staircase was 150. I don't remember what the landscape was.
But I think, Jeff, you had indicated maybe we could just budget for it, some of that in the upcoming budget, correct?
Right.
Correct, and that's we can discuss that in the workshop next week.
But Kendra, can you talk to the extension, because we have the extension by December 31st. We have to build and spend all the grant money by then, otherwise we lose it. That's the first question, right? For Jeff, you're nodding, so you can answer. It doesn't have to be.
That's correct. They have a pretty tight timeline on what they want, when they want you to spend CDBG money.
So we're going to ask the county to do a revised bid forms with the new playground piece. Is that right, Kendra? It's going to take them how long to turn that around?
She said that hopefully by the end of this week or possibly next week, so that we can get that out. So we were actually hoping to get it out on March 2nd. So hopefully we can be within that time frame. It would be back on March, I want to say 30th, and then hopefully the board would award the bid on April 13th, and we could keep everything moving forward. Okay. And hopefully, sometime in the spring prior to summer.
I agree with you, Trustee Sullivan, completely. I think we see what the bid numbers arrive, the number that comes in, and then we should absolutely talk about how to do the next phases, or phase rather. I mean, it's not that much work. It's landscape and it's a stair, but I think those are critical to completing the park. And I think it's important to finish a project well before moving on to a new one. And this is, we're almost there. You all did a lot of the work already with the pool, so this is the logical next step.
And there was some donations for landscaping as well.
And can that group continue to raise money, for the park?
They can.
Okay.
Yes, they plan to keep fundraising.
Great, perfect, good.
Okay, so Laura Lee, the motion I have is to accept the money from the IMA. Do I have to do anything right now with the additional increasing the bid, or just leave that alone and Kendra just can't do it?
Yes, until you get your revised plans, hopefully within a week, as Kendra has explained. When you get your revised plans, then you'll have that new budget, and you can proceed to take action on that new budget. But this resolution before you tonight is a mandatory first step, that being an IMA with the county, so they can release the funds, the grant funds, not to exceed $150,000. So this is a step toward getting the grant funds released to you, and it also establishes the parameters under which you will use those funds for the purposes of the project. And there are a number of other regulatory requirements, filing payrolls and minority and women-owned businesses, and all of the standard information that Jeff is completely familiar with. And in terms of record keeping, they'll have the ability to audit your financial records for a 6-year period following completion of the project.
Okay, so before me, I have a resolution to authorize the contract with Westchester County for a CDBG program for the Gould Park Playground project. It's granting Dobbs Ferry an award of funds totaling $150,000 under the Community Development Block Grant. Some of the proceeds of the 150, at the original plan is we'll have to put in $175,000, and the term is from March 1st, 2021 through February 28th, 2022. And as Laura Lee alluded to, there are strict obligations that we have to follow as far as further fair housing and other requirements. So is there a motion for us to enter into this agreement? trustee Patino, second trustee Sullivan, all in favor? Okay, that passes unanimously. So, all right, that's great. And we'll look forward to getting together, improving the park even further. So that's great. Okay, let's move along to the minutes. Anybody have any comments on the minutes? Is there a motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting? Trustee DeRozzi, second trustee Sullivan, all in favor? Those minutes are accepted. Okay. Liaison reports, the nominating committee. We have anybody met? I don't think we have anybody for the nominating committee, right? I have to take care of the nominating committee. Traffic committee, they met on February 10th.
Yes, they met. I guess the biggest update is we're working on scheduling a meeting between the traffic committee, Richard, the our streets group that is a newer group that's formed in Dobbs, and the Safe Routes, to try and all align on what the 20 miles per hour roads are that we should be recommending, and getting the backup documentation for the roads that we would want to recommend, so that all of the groups are aligned and we're all working together. So that's something we're working on for March.
Okay. ZBA, did anybody attend that?
I did not.
Okay.
There was not anything on the agenda that seemed pertinent.
Okay. Youth Service Council?
We haven't had another meeting since the last meeting that we had, but I just want to publicly thank Jennifer, our last coordinator, for assisting us on doing a progress report. So Jennifer did this for us all the way from Hawaii, and we're very grateful.
Laura, I do want to set up a meeting with you, Nicole, Kendra, and Barry. So if someone maybe could send around some kind of a doodle or something, we can come up with a date, okay?
Did I see Christy's hand up?
No, Kendra will take care of it. Kendra or Lisa.
Kendra will take care of it. Okay.
Thank you.
I doodle for my doodles, but I'm not gonna doodle other doodles.
She still owes us another doodle. Don't worry. She's behind on her doodles.
What other doodle do I have to doodle?
Okay, so Kendra it is.
The CAB, the Conservation Advisory Board.
They're working on a code language for tree removal that I think they'll be discussing at the next meeting and presenting to us. More recently, we were sent a kiosk option. I offered to design one for the CAB that would incorporate some of the requirements that they are interested in having. This would be for the Chauncey Trail. I think it's a great idea. It'll just be the one kiosk. The other one at the other end of the trail may just be a small sign, but that would include some ability to, to post information about the trail, other amenities relating to the other side of it. I think it's a great idea. So it's that, and there was a. I met with CAB and Ed Manley at High Street, and they were putting together a proposal for some work at the park there that can be done by volunteers.
Okay, sounds like they're really doing some good stuff there. That's great. AHRB? Nothing? Okay.
No news.
Okay, announcements. Kendra, while we have you here, tell us about the ice skating rink. How's that looking?
Currently, it's pretty unfrozen, so I'm not sure we'll get any more skating in the rest of the season, but fingers crossed, maybe it'll get cold again.
That thing melts so easily.
It does, as soon as the sun hits it.
It does seem like it was a big success, though. So it's great.
Great. We
We
should
were
also
glad
thank,
people came out and used it.
Any
we should
other
also thank
announcements?
we should also thank Kendra and the rec department for all their help with the seniors getting vaccination appointments. They must
Oh,
have
yes,
helped.
thank you very much.
I don't even know how many, but like I feel like hundreds of Gina and them were whizzes at getting appointments when no one else could, and I'm sure our seniors are really thankful.
That's great. Thank you very much for that.
We were happy to help, and I have to give all the credit to Gina because I don't know what she did, but she had the best luck ever.
She was amazing.
Any other announcements?
I do not have right now.
Want to mention the police public forum?
Oh, yes, you're right.
At 5 o'clock. It's at 5.
When is it? It's Thursday at
6.
what time?
Thursday at 6.
6 p.m.
I have so many Zoom things going on. So 6 o'clock Thursday. Thank you. So let me just say that, yes, so the Police Reform Task Force, we have been meeting. We sent out the survey. We got an amazing response in the survey. From what I understand, is over 700 people have responded to the survey. Just an outrageous, fantastic response. We're going through it. I think we got about 17 or 18 actually written ones as well, paper ones. So we're going to all compile that. We're also having the public forum on Thursday at 6 o'clock to listen to people. If you have any insight that you'd like to provide to us, your experiences or any suggestions, now that's going to be the time for you as the public to give us your input on that. The subcommittees have been meeting, and we're charged with coming up with a final report, I think by April 1st. So we are working diligently towards that. So the public's input is the next step, and that would be Thursday, in addition to the survey. So thank you for reminding me about that, Alyssa. Is there anything else that I have to add about that? Did I forget anything, leave anything out? No?
Want to mention the email address where people can send comments if they can't attend the forum. It's Police Reform Task Force at dobbsferry.com.
Nobody could hear
What was
you.
the- Yeah.
Oh, sorry. If you want to mention the email address where people can send comments, it's
What is the
Police
email
Reform
address?
Task Force at dobbsferry.com.
Thank you. And I think on our website, you could just go to our website and you'll see that information. So again, I want to thank everybody who's participating in that. So, okay, if there's nothing further, I'd like a motion to close this meeting. Deputy Mayor Cassell, second Trustee Patino, all in favor. Meeting is now closed. Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.